So after realizing Portugal wasn't where I was going to plan everything, I gave some thought to where I might consider next. And part of the reason I went to Belgium after was to consider whether maybe I should look into getting an apartment in Belgium. Belgium has several languages spoken. It's quite central in Europe. I hadn't really spent enough time there to get a sense of it. And I thought, okay, well, let's go. Let's have a look around. Let's find out what we can. Let's get a feel for it, because part of what I'm hoping to do with where I do decide to go, I was hoping to get a certain feeling, to see where I could build community and feel like I was a part of things and be a part of things and make a difference in a life there. Like I don't want to go to a place where I feel completely isolated. So Portugal had appealed because I was like, oh, everyone speaks English. Not quite, but everyone speaks English, and you can, because you want to be able to have a conversation, okay? You need to be able to have a conversation, or you can't build community. Doesn't mean you won't learn the language or you won't adapt, but also you need to be still able to make those connections when communication is difficult. You need to have access to services. You need to understand what level of services are important to you and all these kind of things. And so that was one clear thing I thought about Portugal. I thought, okay, maybe I need to be further north in Europe. Because one of the things I realized about Europe is the further north you go, the more infrastructure and the more services. The further south you go, it's older. Now, that's okay because it's also traditional. And you've got a lot of older traditions north, but you have more infrastructure and transport further north. Now, ironically, the health system is kind of across the board different in different places. It's actually quite good in a lot of the southern states as well. So these are different things that you look for, like things you're going to need to have in your life as you get older, which is what I'm looking towards. So I thought, okay, well, what about an apartment in Brussels? And so what I thought about was, I'd do it as an investment. And thinking about the investment, I obviously look into taxation, which I hadn't at that point. And part of having been in Germany, I understood the taxation there is very, there's a lot of it. It's probably the short answer. It's complex, it's very strict, and there's a lot that you kind of don't understand. And there's anyway, they tend to take more tax and get you to apply for it back just to be sure it's paid. Yay. Because, we don't want to not do that. So I thought Belgium, and a few things early on. So the one positive about the gentleman at the hotel at Belgian school was he would talk about different things. And I quite liked a lot of the culture he mentioned and the music he shared and art and different things he talked about in the city. And they were all positives. I went to a meetup while I was in Belgium and I had a great time. I met a lot of people from everywhere. There's a disastrous state that will also never, ever, ever be discussed that I had while I was there. But also, so I got out there. So I did the touristy thing. I went to a few different places. You have the video on Antwerp and Bruges. Obviously, I rewatched In Bruges when I went to Bruges. I don't know why I want to say Bruges, but I do. And there's some beautiful places in Belgium. One, from a visual perspective, I thought a lot of the towns were beautiful. The transport was easy because I did go to a lot of places. I wasn't stressed about it. I had great days out. There were beautiful tea houses and things, which appeals to me big time. So there was a lot about Belgium that was, ticking boxes, till one event at Belgian school. And so I don't know how it came up. And I did Google it after because I was like, you're kidding me. So I was looking into the average rentals. So you often think if you're going to invest in a unit, or coming from where I have in Australia, if you're going to invest in a unit, there'd be the rental periods and being able to sort of manage the rent and manage the investment. And particularly now, if I was looking at somewhere like Belgium, it would be a more expensive investment versus the property values in Portugal. That said, Lisbon, being the major city and also more popular, is more expensive than most of Portugal. But, the rates were very different. And I was like, okay, but you'd have to kind of maybe get a loan and, maybe you'd pay some of it off and da-da-da. And then I looked at the rental periods. And they're not what I expected. So the one rental benefit of Belgium also being an EU nation is Belgium is the centre of a lot of the EU institutions. So it has a lot of international workers there. So I thought you've got a consistent supply of people wanting to rent. You are going to have people looking for places to live. And there are places that were still under development. That was another discussion I had. Like, well, there are areas that are still up and coming. You might want to get into them. They still need a bit of gentrification. So it's prior to them really kind of kicking off. I had that discussion in Vienna too with a friend. Anyway, so I find out that a short rental, let me say that again, just so everyone gets it, a short rental period in Belgium is 3 years. Not 3 months, 3 years. That is a short rental. Short. A standard rental is 6 to 9 years. 6 to 9 years. Okay. So I went, right, okay, that's not really going to work with something that you're investing in and hoping that you, because I'm guessing that you have a rental contract, maybe there is an incremental increase in it, but there'd probably be restricting of the costs. Now, obviously you don't want it going crazy because people need to live, etc. But if you're buying a property for investment, the rent is very key to you paying it back, it gaining value, and you being able to maybe even increase your repayments because the rental income does go up over time. That's not happening when you've got a rental contract for a 9-year period. Now, granted, there could be more to the rental contracts there, but I thought, we've hit a flag that cannot be passed. It's not even red. It's do not pass go, do not collect $200 on Monopoly. This is not. So I thought, okay. And then there was a mix of the experience there. You know, I realized that I'd have to pick up more than one language there, which is, my French is not good. My German is non-existent. My Flemish is, I wouldn't know where to start. But, you know, there were more challenges with that, although there are a lot of more international people. And so you do have that mix. So it did have a bit of a life, but you've still got a factor that started to become very clear to me as well on my journey. And this was clear from Lisbon, but not Lisbon being specifically that it was Portugal, was I wasn't enjoying cities anymore. So I'd lived in London I'd come from Australia, I'd grown up in Sydney, but I hadn't grown up in the city centre. I'd lived in London, not central London, Greater London and part of central London for the time I was there. And it was great, but it was also over time, big cities became not on my radar. And Lisbon, for all intents and purposes, is a big city. It's a developed city now. It's quite sprawling. And while that has its benefits, unless you're in kind of a neighborhood that you've got, you know, that 15-minute city feel, again, it's not for me. So I'd either kind of be rather out of it and you can drive 15, 20 minutes to get to somewhere you do your things and then you have your quiet peace, or a city that's a little less busy, a little less overrun, a little more easygoing. So I'd kind of hoped to find that in Belgium and I didn't. So I was like, okay, well, Belgium's cool. There's a lot of positives, but it sort of now also became not just a matter of thinking that I'd maybe need the community factor. It's like, okay, there's these other aspects coming to light that indicate what I'm looking for and what I'm not. And so it became kind of obvious that I needed to check the cities out because there might be one. There might be one where I go, oh, a nice little apartment here would be nice. And also the other thing was when I do go towards investment, and I am thinking about somewhere now, I have to think about the fact that if financially things went south or, you know, I have limitations on what happens that way, then would I be happy being stuck living there? Would I be happy enough to make my life there or be able to make a life there with a certain amount of quality under the circumstances? So that was also the component that I've been thinking about. So to go back to the Portugal experience, Lisbon's on a huge hill. When you're older, it's no good. I mean, I had a little guy in a station. My God, he must have had rocks in this nana trolley. But there's no one in the station. There's no lift. There's just stairs. There was like 20 of them. He's 90 going on 150 and he's standing at the bottom of these stairs and I'm looking and I'm thinking, well, I don't speak Portuguese, but I'll ask. And I kind of go, you know, do you want me to do this? And he's like, I don't know, is it C? I don't know what he said, but he said, no, nodded. I think I strained a muscle pulling them up, but I did. And then I'm like, voila. And he's like, français. And I'm like, no. And he was quite sweet, but I'm thinking, does he just stop there every single day and wait for someone to turn up so he can get back out of the station when he has to? And maybe he doesn't shop every day, but he's an elderly man, a little small elderly man in a city that's not there to accommodate him. So, and look, maybe there are other instances and this is a one-off, but I don't think so. You have to think about the fact it might just be you. So I thought, no. And then Belgium has a good transport, but again, you get lost in a city as an older person. I think it's very easy to be invisible. So these are things I've been thinking about. And also then, is it worth the investment? There's only a certain period of time now, and it's going to be these long rental periods. So maybe that isn't what I'd be looking for, because say I want to live in it at some point. If I've got a tenant that's in there for 9 years, and I'm guessing the laws are pretty strong on protecting tenants' rights, and I'm okay with that, but it's pretty clear you've gone into the contract. There's not an option to just willy-nilly break it when you need it. So I was like, whoa, because at least with the contracts coming up for kind of renewal on 1 or 2 year periods, there's market shifts, there's changes in people's lifestyles. Sometimes it's inconvenient, sure, but sometimes it's super convenient for both ends. Life changes, jobs changes, you move countries, all sorts of things. So it was becoming clear from the Belgium experience that what I needed was also shifting. And so Belgium, in this case, again, it was too busy a city for me. It's beautiful. There's a lot of things going on and that would work for a lot of people, but I think it's a younger person city, and I think it's a professional worker city. I think it's a city of people who very much are going to work in a UN organization or work in a political element of the UN. And it supports that very, very well. And it has such an international community. So that was a big positive. But also there's not the smallness where you can feel like you connect really easily. So you'd have to go to meetups. But again, that was possible. There was I think I looked up meetups in Lisbon and there wasn't really the opportunity or places to go where you could you'd have to make more of an effort to be building those networks, because the Portuguese stay close to home with family. In Belgium, you're dealing with a lot more people that are either building their family, meeting new people, have moved there for work, so you have a completely different... So this was giving me so much more of an insight into that kind of thing. Like, are you going to go somewhere where you're predominantly there with locals, or are you going to be there with expats and locals, or are you going to be there with Europeans and locals? Like, what is the makeup of the area? So I was very much at this point deciding that cities were not for me. That said, I had this day, I don't think I have any photos of them, but these two older ladies who with my broken French and their broken English, I think they were on their way to Bangkok or something the next day. And we sat there eating the fries that you get in Belgium with the sauces on them. And they were just hilarious. They were like, ha 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 bang, like just lovely people. And I can't tell you more than that. I can't even tell you for sure what we talked about, but they were just really sweet. So there were some high points. You'd see from the Bruges one, it's gorgeous, but it's something you go and see versus somewhere you live, because it's overrun in summer and it'd be dead in winter. I didn't get to Ghent, which is another place which is supposed to be cool. But Antwerp I liked it. The feel of there was nice. But again, I was gearing away from cities at this point. So Antwerp was probably the one I was closest in attraction to in Belgium. But again, it wasn't satisfying the other end. So after Belgium, it was on to the next and being confused about where the next should even be. But I kept moving. Sharing is caring.